everyone. Welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Graphene Manufacturing Group. Chatting again with the founder and CEO, Craig Nicol. Thank you, everyone, for continuing to send in your questions. We are going to address pretty much all of them here, but they also tie in a lot to some of the recent news involving sales and regulatory update on G Lubricant, updates on the batteries, patents and partnerships, as well as a new member joining the Technical Advisory Committee. GMG is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GMG and on the OTCQX under the symbol GMGMF. So, Craig, let's start off with the July 4th news release. I get the most questions regarding sales of any of the three products that the company has, but this news release deals with sales of G Lubricant and advancing regulatory approvals. Let's start with what you're doing on the sales front for G Lubricant. Summarize this news release and we'll get into a couple questions, please.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So great to be back on. Look, G Lubricant has gone from single pack sales on glubricant.com, which is testing people out. People can buy it and test it and get good response. And then often, they're able to go and then recommend to their friends, or maybe they've got a business themselves where they could use it. So it's getting the product out. Obviously, our product is a globally usable product in a very, very large market. So that's what glubricant.com is about. And we have a range of advertising going on online and also in magazines and newspapers, especially in Australia, but online's global, across YouTube's, Google Leads, Meta, yeah, you name it, basically. I don't think we're doing TikTok, so we've kept that off that for a while, for now anyway. The work that we've found so far is that people really like the product. We haven't had a bad review, which is fantastic. People basically come back and say, yeah, I got what you got. I got 10% fuel saving. The engine's much smoother. There's less noise. And so now we're in a process, and this is really quite an intense process, is palletizing our products, because people eventually, they want pallets. They don't want single packs. And palletizing multiple different packs to be able to sell, this in pallets around the world is, quite a pretty detailed thing, because you got to have, say, 2,000 packs on a pallet. And so that's what we're working through. And they have to be in the right language. They have to obey all the legal requirements. And, they obviously have to have the right things on the labels in the right language. So that's what we're literally doing this week. It's a huge job. We've got 12 stock keeping units already. We're probably going to expand that out to 20 very shortly. And each one of them, we need to be able to palletize. We'll be using third parties, obviously, to do that up front for packs and pallets, packing it onto pallets, and then we'll start shipping in pallets. So that's, it's a big step to be able to have significant revenue. And, it's basically definitely this side of the year. It's just how fast we palletize, and that depends on how fast we can get our third-party companies to help us push this through. So that's one area. With TXR, we're working on the launch of a TXR kit, which has everything in it. So it just like G Lubricant, where people can trial it and get to understand it, and they tell some friends or people who they know who could use it. TXR kit is a completely self-sustaining kit that we expect to launch shortly, and that will be on then a website. People can buy that directly, and then people can then look at using that themselves, seeing what they like, seeing how it reduces their energy on their air conditioner. You won't need any special licenses for that, even in Australia. So it's designed to kind of be really accessible and a price which enables people to come and buy and use and see the benefits, and then be able to tell people about it. So that's also what we're working on. And of course, we have to palletize that, because as soon as people talk about the kit to people with electric spray gun, it immediately people go, okay, I want that in pallets. And so we've also in the process of palletizing that as well.
Craig, how hard is it to palletize this stuff? Can't you just pack a whole lot of it onto a pallet and ship it off?
Yeah, you can. You just got to do that, like many pallets a day. And that's the thing. We can make the liquid, but it's palletizing it into the legally required boxes and all of it, because the distributors wanted a certain box size so they can give it to their stores. It has to be in the right language. So there's probably 16 languages we're going to need to do all this in as well. So all of that is what we're doing right now.
Okay, there are a couple other sales actions, as they're called within that news release. I'll walk through a couple of these. One is the potential of scaling partnerships with large oil and gas companies and OEMs around the world. What would this look like, and how much more testing is needed before you can get into a partnership here and someone will start distributing your product for you?
Yeah, so with G Lubricant, you've got really two markets. One is the after warranty market or post warranty market, and that is by far the biggest of the market, right? It's probably 95% of the market because, warranties only last a certain period and cars are lasting a lot longer, or vehicles are lasting a lot longer. So that's the market we can go into right now, and we feel quite comfortable in addressing that market, and it is the largest market by far. And then there's obviously the smaller market, which is the new warranted trucks. Now, to get a warranty truck to actually have this included in that, it needs to go through the normal process, which is called an API approval for lubricant. And now we're looking at that going, we'd prefer to work with a partner on that. It's probably 3 to 5 years worth of testing to get it to an API approved product. That's how long it takes. That's how long it would take in my Shell days. So, it's not anything different. So the smaller size warranty engine items are opportunities. Now, you can fast track that. You can get some big fleets, certainly have got trialing the product, and then they can go back and tell the OEM saying, please include this in the warranty. But there's a lot of companies out there with warranty trucks that they don't want to put that risk their truck without it being with this new product or any new product without the warranty being okay or continuing to be maintained. So that's the crux of it. Not that we think in any way it would be a problem for the truck. It's just that the OEMs will often want to, cover their bases on anything that's changed on their warranty, and then say, well, you use something different, so therefore we can't cover you. So that's the touch point, and I think that's the partnership opportunity that we're working on. And, we have some good brands in there that we're working on that. And it's difficult work. We're a big disruptor, as I think everyone knows. And that's the focus. We've got to get some of these turkeys to vote for Christmas. And that's literally the conversations we're having.
Okay, you do mention in this news release that as you are actively awaiting product performance feedback from these large truck fleets, you anticipate this within the next few months. Does that mean this leads to sales, or does that lead to more testing?
Look, I think I don't think they'll ever stop be testing of our product because the claims are so massive, right? So, and that's okay, that's fine. People will want to test it themselves first, wherever they are in the world, and make sure that it works. We know how it works. We believe the mechanism works on every engine. We understand why that. We've got some very solid engineering thesis behind that and testing data. So, I think what we'll go through is what we're looking at is large distributors who can work with us in different countries around the world with the testing we have. And there's enough of them already. And that's what we're working on palletizing our products for. So these other guys with their testing, that'll only increase it. But we've already got enough distributors to make us feel like we really need to palletize and push this into the next gear. Which we believe in the next couple of months, that'll all happen.
Okay, so I guess this next couple month concept is important because it also says that you're onboarding a number of new sales teams members. And then right after that, it says kind of what you're saying is the production and packaging systems, you need to get these set up to fall in line with your sales estimate. So in these next few months, it sounds like, I guess maybe by the end of the year, there should be some significant news on the sales front just for G Lubricant.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where we're pushing. It's with Europe, where we've got distributors asking to be pallet distributors, that we do need to run through the REACH program. So that's a bit different to the EPA program. REACH is the European program to basically assess risk for new chemicals. And graphene has already been assessed as non-toxic and safe in Europe. Will work already. But you need to go through a process of getting our product registered under the same work that graphene has already been approved under. So that's what we've, just working on now. We have in the process of moving a consultant to get that done. Expecting that to be in next couple of months, probably 3 months max to kind of close that out. I think that's what we said there. So that's that space to get to European sales. America will be different. We'll need to do once we believe we get the THERMAL-XR EPA approval, we'll then need to put in a kind of what's called a significant new use, a SNR, and then that enables us to hopefully potentially use G Lubricant under that and get that approval, because the EPA does an assessment on each graphene particle, whereas Europe is a kind of all graphene is generally approved under one.
All right, let's talk about the EPA approval then. I still get a lot of questions on this. In that news release, it says you're engaging consultants for the assistance in obtaining that USA EPA approval for G Lubricant, but for the THERMAL-XR, a simple question came in. Have you submitted that EPA approval? And if so, can we put a timeline on it?
We certainly have submitted it. It's been an enormous amount of work. That was some months ago. That is now being managed by our consultants who've already got a graphene coating approved with the EPA, and they're managing that in pretty intent basis. I've been hearing that we're now really one more step away from a consent notice, which means we can start shipping. Once we have that consent notice, we can start shipping straight away, and that'll kind of give us, whilst the consent notice it's a bit of an exclusivity, because we're the only company that we named on the consent notice that this type of product can come into the Americas. That means we can go straight away. So we're very close, but we're still maintaining a timeline of December for that. Obviously, we'll be pushing and hoping for earlier, but we are maintaining a timeline of December, despite really being one last step away from potentially getting a consent notice, which means that significant revenue can come in.
So do you build up inventory here, Craig, so that when you get this approval that you need, you can satisfy the market right away?
We are, and also to some degree, we've got a production facility which can actually get going pretty quickly as well. So, we've got an enormous amount of production capacity with our blending. That's what's brilliant about liquid blending. Liquid products are very easy to scale. Capital-wise, is very efficient. A blending plant is very low cost, and then it's really around the packaging. And if you can do that externally up front, then you can scale really fast. That's my training in Shell for many years and that type of stuff. So that's our thinking. The day we need to do night shift, because all our day shifts are already full for blending, will be a really big thing for revenue. Once we fill out our day shift and then we go to night shift on our blending plant, our revenues will be very, very nice indeed. So that's the next stage, and then you go to weekend blending. So basically 24 hours, 7 day a week blending, and then you go to an alternative plant, which is very easy to do even in our existing warehouse space. And then you're basically doing external packaging and palletization. So that's how we see it. And then eventually, obviously, you start to see a graphene limit. And then that's when our Gen 2 production of 10 ton of graphene per annum, we expect that to be up and running by June next year. So that's when that will come in. So we expect that to be able to back up, our overall production plan needed.
Let's quickly talk about Europe then, because there's a different sort of, approval process you're going through there so that you can sell large quantities of the product. You said this process will take up to 3 months to complete. Does that mean you can still sell into Europe? What's important about this potential regulatory approval?
Yeah, again, it's like bulk production, like pallets. We really need that approval for that pallet to be able to be imported into Europe, into all the various different countries. Of course, Europe is a massive number of countries now, EU, which is what that regulatory approval will actually provide. There are a number of other countries around the world in South America that are also now compliant under REACH. So if you have REACH approval or REACH registration, you can then also go into those countries, and some of them even Northeast Asia and Latin America. So this will enable us to go into a lot of countries, not just in Europe. There's obviously more who are using that system. and taking from the Europeans on their nanotech work, because the Europeans definitely did a lot of work on nanotechnology safety many years ago. So they've got a very firm belief of what's safe, and because of all the work they've done, they've spent billions on that. So it's probably going to be quicker, but proof will be in the pudding, and we've got some pretty knowledgeable distributors who want to push this and help as well. So that's the thing. But then you've got all the different languages. So that's the thing we've got to work through, all the different languages and making sure that it works and is compliant with all the different countries. So that's obviously part and parcel of it as well.
So, Craig, when you can start to sell this product, especially in the pallet form, will it immediately be profitable for you as a company, for Graphene Manufacturing Group, or is there a certain scale you need to get to for that profitability and that cash flow to come in?
No, the current pricing, we're kind of, like software margins. So that's the margin will be there, gross margin will be there immediately. Obviously, it will take some money, sales to really start pushing in a gross profit for the company, I mean. So, having a positive cash flow outcome, we're really needing around the kind of 6 to 10, probably around $10 million revenue, and then we'll be positive cash flow. If you put it all together, that's kind of where we're aiming. So if, once that gets through, in my mind, you're then, looking at a very profitable P&L, which people can then start to see how much money we can make from these products that, are slowly but surely being patented and slowly but surely, gaining understanding of how good they can really reduce people's energy bills and how economic they are. So, get more and more data, get more and more understanding of what it does, and then you can see the cash flow going to the bottom line, and then then we'll start to scale, and then we'll have even more margin reduction. But we've been focused on these products from the very get-go because of the fact that we can make them low cost and we have high margin. That's the whole reason why we are doing these products.
Okay, Craig, we've gotten through the questions on G Lubricant and a lot on TXR. Let's move to the battery side of things. July 14th news release. You discussed the patent being granted in Australia and with the University of Queensland, a new collaboration agreement. Let's start with that patent. It's granted in Australia. What does that mean for distribution? What does that mean for the rest of the world?
Yeah, so a patent in Australia has to be able to be, the Australian Patent Officer has to actually confirm that there are no conflicts globally. So what that means is that we have something that's globally leading. And now it's obviously University of Queensland's patent, and to do with how the graphene is treated in the aluminium-ion battery and how the aluminium-ion battery comes together. And that once, obviously that's now patented. So now it's in Australia. So now it's just blowing through around the world where we've pushed it into various other countries. That then provides, more clarity that this is the area that we're working in. And therefore, this has a certain amount of competitive edge or kind of moat, from competitors coming into it. It's patenting of batteries is always interesting. If you see the latest batteries out of China, which are just, some of them are really awesome, that they don't talk about their chemistry anymore. It's really about just saying this is what the battery does, and you don't need to know the chemistry. You don't need to know how we make it. So there's less and less specifics because it's becoming very competitive in the space. So, as we progress, I think we'll have less and less on what actually is in the battery, because you don't want to tell too many people what you actually, how you do it. There's significant IP in this type of opportunity. In fact, it's pretty much all IP. So we've got to protect that IP through how we communicate it as well to the market. So, as we progress, we really hope to be able to be clear about it, but fully knowing that, you don't want to tell people everything, otherwise you lose its competitive advantage around the technical elements of it.
Yes, it makes sense that the technology very important in this aspect, and that's why you're working with the University of Queensland. Let's talk about this new collaboration agreement. What's going on with this relationship? And also, it looks like you received just under $1 million from the Australian government to further fund this development.
Yeah, so battery development basically never ceases, and we're going to continue to work with the University of Queensland through this collaboration agreement. We're very excited about. They're one of the best universities in the world. They obviously developed this aluminium ion battery that it's now patented under them, so they're clearly world leaders in this with the Australian Institute of Bioengineering Nanotechnology, which is a world leading nanotechnology institute as part of the university. So that work is all about developing the technology past where we are now and into the future, and making sure that we have all the various different options to kind of pull on to make this battery better even further. And that's what battery development is all about. It's options. Have as many options on all the different parts of the battery as possible means that you can put together a far more optimized battery in the end.
So when it comes to building the battery, this partnership with BIC in the US, you outlined that you're no longer building your own battery plant in Australia. What's going on with BIC? What activities are happening to actually build this battery?
Yeah, so in order to scale up, which we said we will this year, we need a pilot plant, and the BIC basically has one, and we're working with them, obviously closely associated with our director, Bob Gallion, who's obviously got an enormous amount of battery experience in the past, and being the second employee at CATL, the largest battery company there is. So we have a very close connection, obviously, with the BIC in Indiana as a result of that. And so we're already now making our batteries at the BIC in Indiana. I can say that now. It's a big step for us. I'm very proud of that, to be able to have the battery at that point. It's a significant step to fly a battery engineer over there and make that happen with their team. And now we'll have two teams running, doing battery development at the same time. It's good to be able to replicate and be able to say that the IP is shared. It works, or it works better, or it works different, and why. That's a big part of batteries. You can transfer the IP successfully. So that's part of the reason, but the bigger reason is to push our battery along and progress it. Of course, once we have something very clearly optimized that we think is worthy of disclosure, we will definitely be announcing, and we're very excited about it. Very excited about to get that next step.
So what news comes out of the battery division coming up? How do we judge what the next step is then?
Yeah, look, I think we have decided not to install an automatic battery plant here for now. I mean, I think at some point we will come back and do that. But up front, you want to be able to know what type of battery plant to build, because there are just so many options and variations, and you can optionize it up to the whatever imagination you can have. But really, we want to use somebody else's battery plant and their support to get to a point of understanding on how to make this happen, and that's really the BIC's about. So we really think that the next step is basically to announce, here's our optimized battery, here's the performance data, in a pouch cell or a cylindrical cell. We'll kind of do that at the right time. When that's got at that point, we can then say this is finally our first iterative battery, and this is the data for it. So that's really the next step that we're working on.
All right, Craig, one other news release, July 22nd. You have a professor joining your technical advisory committee. What's his background, and what's he going to help you with?
Yeah, look, Doug's, I would call him an old friend, not a professor of mine. Obviously, I went to QT as well, and he's a very well-respected engineer from, I would say, Asia-Pacific kind of region, and with the Order of Australia medal for his work in Australia for engineering. His PhDs were actually in lubrication, in tribology, which is obviously one of our products, does that. And that's key, right? So we need to really push the boundaries of lubrication. And he's also very, very knowledgeable in connector and heat transfer as well. And that's our other product, THERMAL-XR. So, he was in charge of Engineers Australia, which is the governing body for engineering in Australia, and quite well respected, who are currently running an advertising program about us as well at the same time. So, to have Professor Emeritus Doug Hargraves come on board and be on our advisory team as we build out our engineering, Obviously, in addition to Bob Galligan from the battery side, it's kind of like the dream team. So very happy to welcome Doug, and he's a great guy, and as well as being a fantastic engineer.
All right, Craig, thank you for addressing all these questions. We only have one more that just didn't quite fit into this conversation, and that's G Lubricant. If it improves fuel efficiency and performance, have you spoken to moto racing teams about the product?
Look, yeah, I mean, to some degree, more than others in some other areas, but we know that professional teams need to have genuinely everything approved by the governing body. So that is definitely something that needs to happen in a due process. We've seen that with TXR. We had some great results for a racing team in North America on TXR on their radiator, but they weren't allowed to use it because of the governing body didn't know what it was. So, yeah, I think there's opportunity for that. I do think it would be a good place to showcase it. It's just one of the many opportunities to get this product out there.
All right, Craig, thank you again for addressing all these comments. Please, everyone, keep sending me your questions and other topics you want me to bring up with Craig. My email address, fleck@kereport.com. And I will post a link to the GMG website in the show notes, so you can click that link, read over all the recent news. Craig, again, thank you very much for addressing these questions.
Great. Thanks, Corey. Nice to talk to you again.